Hi, I'm Rev.Jessie Brandon. I'm a life cycle celebrant and a metaphysical minister, and on Epiphanies, I get to bring together two of my favorite things, people and books. Now today, before I go there, let me hope that you've got a cup of tea or a coffee and you're snuggled up in your favorite chair because we're going to have a good time. Today we're looking at Jonathan Livingston Seagull by Richard Bach. And this book is a song for spirits who have lived so long and so quietly by themselves. Jonathan Livingston Seagull is a story for readers who know that somewhere there's a higher way of living than scuffing the tracks of others. A story for someone who yearns to fly. It is a reminder, this little fable, that the path for us to follow is already written within. Others may watch. They may admire our resolution or despise it, but our one freedom is to love and to choose to live every day of our lives as we wish. I read this so many years ago, and I wish I'd paid attention then. Thank goodness I am now. With me today to discuss this book is my dear friend, Colette Mesdag, intuitive guide and creator of Mystic Empowerment Cards. Colette, thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for having me.
I'm going to hand you the book.
Oh, thank you.
And tell me, why this book?
Oh, years ago when I was in my early 20s, I came across this little book, because at the time they had printed the edition that was just like this little pocket-sized thing, so it was easy to sneak in the house. And I don't even remember how I heard about it, but it was it intrigued me because I was always challenging. I was one of those kids that always challenged the status quo, especially with regards to I would say my belief in the church and so on that I was raised in. And so this gave me sort of like that little bit of, it's okay to be different. It's okay to push the envelope a bit. And as a fable, it made it much easier for me to digest at that young age, because I was fairly young. So much so that my original copy, which I didn't bring today, I went out and bought a new copy, was so faded and so worn that I went like, I can't bring this on the set. So,
oh, that just shows how much you loved it.
Yes, I know that. So it's kind of this catch-22 to decide whether or not I was going to bring the original copy. But I was glad I picked up the new version because it's got a full extra part that wasn't in the original book.
Nice.
And I think if that part had been in the book before, I may not have been able to accept it at that time. I was because it speaks about sometimes you have to fail in order to learn, and I don't think I was ready to hear that at that time. So so it was so it was interesting, when you find a book that you love and then you go back and reread it again, of course, which I did before coming on the show, just to refresh my memory. I found myself, basically going, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh, I don't remember that. So you grow a little bit, all the time. And when you go and revisit a book that you love, and you see how you've changed and grown, maybe moved away from certain things that you used to be very drawn to, or move even closer to where you've been drawn to. Mm-hmm. So
it's interesting how that happens, when you suddenly see that you're no longer doing things that you thought were saving your life, that you got from books and habits and things like that. I know, for instance, affirmations, I used to write them every morning, and they'd be up all over my mirrors, and now I just repeat a few in my head that are meaningful to me, but it used to be my lifeblood. So yeah. So have you gifted this book or told other people to read this book for any particular reason?
Not for a long time, but I think after rereading it, especially the fourth part, I would say yes, I probably do that at this stage, say definitely read it, even if you read it a long time ago, because it was really fun to reread, and like I say, see where I've adapted and changed because of the information that I received from this little fable, and it is so gently written, Like, I mean, you look at the character Jonathan Livingston Seagull, and you go, okay, well, he's every man. But at the same time, he's more than every man because he pushes himself to be, more. And I think at that time it was encouraging for me again, like I said, I was very young. I was like early teens when I first picked it up, and you know, meant something then, but it meant even more in my 20s, and again in my 30s meant something again, and now in my 50s, you know, I skipped the 40s. I didn't read it in my 40s, but I did when I reread it in my 50s. I'm going, you know, it's very settling. It's very interesting. And especially when you're doing something in your career or your life path that's a little unique and different, which I do, it was fun to go back again and say, yes, that's why I'm doing this. That's why sometimes it's okay to feel challenged. It's okay to have these setbacks and even beat yourself up a little bit for, yeah, maybe I should go back to being normal. And then
Please
you go.
Don't.
Thank you. But you know, some things challenge you, and then this was great for me. Again, you know, the invitation to come back on the show, and having a chance to reread made me go, wow, yeah, I'm okay. You know, just because I've had a few setbacks, and you know, sometimes you get challenged about your little project that's been happening for 6 years, and now, you know, so we know it's not little, but perception, and this was a refresher. Cool. Because the perception of the flock of seagulls was that it's okay to just survive and not expand and not grow and only be, you know, just a seagull.
Right.
You know?
So that's what I want you to tell the listeners about is, well, just because the actual reading of the book, you have to really use your heart to read this book. So tell the basic outline of the book, and then we'll get into the depth of it.
All right. Well, basically, it's about a young seagull who strives to be a better flyer, and will even break all the rules that the Council of Seagulls says, you know, this is normal seagull behavior. And so much so that he gets outcast and goes off and lives on his own. And even though he's sad that he's lost his flock, he's more sadder for them for having lost the opportunity to grow and expand the way he is. And as he learns to fly differently, faster, dive deeper into the water, he gets, you know, better food and better fish, can fly longer hours. Therefore, he can go inland a little bit more where there's more delicacies and things to enjoy. Whereas back at home, his flock is still scrambling for fish heads, you know, and off the fishing boats and squawking and just barely scraping, you know, it's like from an energy point of view as well as from a, you know, survival point of view. So, and then he, as he grows into his energy, he surpasses so much of the normal world, or this current world, that he's elevated. Right. You know, so he connects with other seagulls that are elevated, and you know, whereas he hadn't experienced that before, so he finds his tribe in a sense. Right.
So he's operating at a higher vibration than his flock, than he used to be.
Exactly.
So can I then suggest that tells us that it's okay to leave the people that you know in your starting out world and move on to what feeds your soul?
That's definitely it. You nailed it. So, and that again is part of what helped me, you know, especially when I was younger, feeling different, feeling unique, and not fitting in somewhat to what normal society would say. It was sort of like that little string of hope hanging on, that, you know, if I just continue doing what feels right for me, right for my soul, and feeds my soul, then I will have, at some point, even if it takes a lot of work, at some point I will reach a level that I can revel in and grow in.
I always admire people who find these messages early, because I missed all the signs for whatever reason, and so I'm fascinated by people who say, yeah, I read this in my teens and I got it, and sort of tried to follow that path. And is there a passage in the book or anything in there that speaks to you that you'd like to share with us?
Yes, it's the conversation with Jonathan and the elder gull who teaches him how to basically time travel. And so it's kind of fun.
Okay, cool.
I will have to put my glasses on, though.
Well, such is the life of us old gals, eh?
Exactly.
I've had mine since I was 19, so I guess that really doesn't count. Okay, I'm settled in.
That's okay. Me too. Jonathan kept at it fiercely day after day, from before sunrise until past midnight. For all his efforts, he moved not one feather width from his spot. Forget about faith, Chang said time and time again. You didn't need faith to fly. You needed to understand flying. This is just the same. Now try again. Then one day, Jonathan, standing on the shore, closing his eyes, concentrating, all in a flash, knew what Chang had been telling him. Why, that's true. I am perfect, unlimited. And he felt a shock of great joy. I missed a word there. Good, said Chang, and there was victory in his voice. Jonathan opened his eyes. He stood alone with the elder on a totally different shore, trees down to the water's edge, twin yellow suns turning overhead. At last you've got the idea, Chang said, but your control needs a little work. Jonathan was stunned. Where are we? Utterly unimpressed by the strange surroundings, the elder brushed the question aside. We're on some planet, obviously, with a green sky and a double star for a sun. Jonathan made a scream of delight, the first sound he had made since he had left Earth. It works. Well, of course it works, John, said Chang. It always works when you know what you're doing. Now, about your control.
That's so beautiful. Now, there was a part, let me see. There was a part there that I wanted to question. Forget about faith. You didn't need faith to fly. You needed to understand flying. Now, can you put a spiritual metaphor to that, or just explain to me, if you don't need faith, you just need to understand flying. How can you explain that differently to me, can you?
I think what it speaks to me is that it's okay, you need faith to a certain extent, but you need faith in yourself. You need to understand that you are limitless. You are, you're capable of doing things intuitively, instinctively, like flying, for a seagull is instinct. And doing anything else can also be instinct. You don't actually have to be, think that it has to be coming from outside yourself or bigger than yourself. It's already within.
So that kind of reminds me of the law of attraction, because everybody thinks if I just say it and I just believe, I'll attract it to me, but they don't understand that it's the innate work inside the soul that brings you to a certain level of vibration that then attracts the things that you've asked for because you're prepared for them and you're ready for them. Would that be a...
Yes, and I would add probably to be, but not to project forward. You just need to be in the now. And in being in the now and understanding that everything is possible in the now, not having to wait for later on or project it into the future or attract it or whatever, is part of your, of that spiritual energy that makes you stronger as a human being, as a teacher, healer, provider of wisdom. Is just be and enjoy the moment. Don't force it. You can't force it.
Right, right. It kind of makes me think of the old Buddhist saying, chop wood, carry water, seek enlightenment. And it's do the work and do the internal work, and it will come to you then. And that kind of is the path. You've got to do the internal work.
Absolutely.
Right. Is there another passage or just that one that spoke to you so well?
There's so many that do. That's the one I marked.
Is there anything in the new section that...
Well, actually what was interesting, the part that was really intriguing for me was the author's comment about the last section being added.
Okay.
And I could just do a quick
please
review on that. So his... the last chapter is not an amazing story, though it feels like it. How do adventures suddenly appear in one's mind? Writers who love their work say that's the mystery that is a part of the magic, no explanation. Imagination is an old soul. Someone whispers in the spirit, speaks softly of a bright world, and the creatures there with joy and sorrow and despair and victories. The tale finished and beautiful except for the words. Writers swirl images to match the action they see. Remember the dialogue from the beginning to the end. Simply insert letters, periods, and commas, and the story is ready to ski down the slopes of booksellers. Stories are wrought not with committees and grammar. They spring from the mystery that touches their own silent imagination. Questions hold us puzzled for years. Then a storm of answers comes sudden from the unknown, arrows from a bow you've never seen. So it is for me. When I stopped writing the fourth part, the story of Jonathan Seagull was done.
Wow, that makes me think of Maria Rilke, who says, live the questions. Don't worry about pursuing the answers. Live the questions, because the answers come when you do that.
And similarly, when I was here before, I spoke about the artist's way, and her and Julia Cameron's comment was always go to the page, just write, go to the page. And you know, even if it sounds like gobbledygook at the start, eventually it starts to flow and be strong and empowered because of the fact that you're going to the page and working. Now,
speaking of that, I know that you are a writer, a photographer, you're a published author, you're so many things. You are truly an artist. And I love your work. And one of the things that has always challenged me is that sitting down and writing gobbledygook and trusting what will come. As you know, I write my wedding ceremonies from scratch. And I literally have to wait and just let everything cogitate and sit inside me, what I've learned about my couple. And it's pretty much the last week before the wedding that it hits me and I can sit down and it just flows, and I usually don't have to change a word. But I'd like to change that process, and I'm thinking that the way you do it, what that suggests there, might be a way to evoke even more nuggets of beauty when I'm writing. Now, tell me about your process. I've seen some of your process, so it's pretty cool.
Well, as a visual person, and that's my expression as well as my thought process or my process for creating anything, I have to have everything, you know, I've got charts and full scaps and Bristol boards, and I have pictures, and but then I sit and I just start writing, and more often than not, like the first book especially came mostly from my journaling, reviewing what I had journaled over the years, and you know, highlighting the things that I had. I have a few journals that have sticky and highlights, you know, to the point that it's double the thickness because it's just so well reviewed and highlighted. But the next couple, once I did it the first time, I said, oh, I can actually write, came a little easier. It was more focused. I would say, I'm going to write about this today, and I would just write 6 pages and narrow it down to 1 or 2 with regards to per card, you know, because I write for the cards specifically at this point.
Now, speaking of the cards, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
That's okay.
Is there more to the process?
That's, you know, the main thing is just not worry about what, you know, stop criticizing in your head what you've written and then try to fix that. Just let it flow, and when it stops flowing, then go back and put the commas, punctuations, move the sentences around, and I find that works well for me.
Right. Okay, so speaking of your writing and the cards, let's talk about Mystic Empowerment cards. Now, I know that you've just fairly recently finished the 3rd deck, so this is amazing. Each deck are they all 44 cards?
Yes.
Okay. And each deck has its own, shall we say, reason for being. So let's start with Mystic Bliss.
Mystic Bliss was the first one, and it was basically at the time I was searching for the higher level of bliss for my own life and going through many transitions, and so it became the deck for change and transformation because it was a reflection of what I was going through and where I was trying to head. So bliss is what I'm aiming for. And mystic is because the themes of my imagery is very, kind of, fantasies, fairies and elves and so on at the time was a very strong influence of it.
Now, I know that what you won't do, and I always do when we're talking to people, is the fact that you came up with these concepts and ideas, and you created the costumes, you sought out the people, you did the photography, you actually, some of the costumes, hand sewed them, and you sought out the people, did the photography, and then you created the cards yourself. And then you literally hand cut each and every card. So
for now.
Yeah, well, I think that that's amazing, and I think when you eventually get to those being published internationally, that they may lose a slight essence of you that is in those cards, because you've lovingly handled every step of this process right down to creating those 44 cards. So the first 44, I know what the second set is, and of course the third set. So tell me about the first set. Who are the people? Did you not start with your own children?
My own children, my nieces, my nephews, friends, the children of friends, and I think the first few that I did, it was me just looking for creative expression. So I had these friends of my daughter, who at the time was around the 13, 14, asked their parents if I could photograph them as fairies, and sure enough I got more volunteers than I knew what to do with. And it just grew from there. And for a while, those images sat on a shelf not knowing what they were going to be.
But didn't you make calendars from them and
yes,
things like that? I
started off with calendars, self-publishing calendars and some greeting cards, and I had mild success, like locally, and then, reached a point where I'm going, I can't do more, without either investing a whole lot of money or having someone invest in me, like a publisher. And so it got shelved. And it wasn't until I was, as I said, going through a big transition in my life that I needed to express and explore a little bit deeper, that I brought those images back, and it came to me that I could make my own deck. Because at the time I was working with other people's decks, and even though they were fabulous and helped me a lot, I needed to go deeper. I needed to dig a little deeper, kind of like Jonathan. He needed to try it again, and push past what he saw and as limitations, just when he changed his way of thinking, saying, if I do this, then I have it, I can try again, do a different direction.
Right. So the second deck, which is called
Mystic Journey.
And it is about?
Well, I call it the Healing and Nurturing deck, because that was, for me, a review of the years that I'd spent working on Mystic Bliss as part of my healing journey, so Mystic Journey, and healing and transformation, healing and nurturing, I can't talk all of a sudden. Healing and nurturing, because it was a feminine energy deck, and for me, and in my studies and in my understanding, is that of archetypes and the sacred feminine, I felt that was the energy that needed to be expressed in that deck. So I speak about the sacred feminine. I speak about the maiden, warrior, mother, and crone. And for me, that's empowering on all levels, from the maiden being open to new awarenesses and the beauty all around, to the warrior who's passionate and stubborn, and the mother who is caring and giving, and the energy of the crone, which is wisdom and settled into their own skin and comfortable in their own skin. So thank you for being a part of that, by the way.
Yeah, I was waiting for the moment when I can say my daughter and I are in the deck, and of course she's a warrior, and it absolutely suits her, because
fits her very much.
Yeah, that's what she is. And you helped me learn that crone is not just an old woman. It is something so enriched with the experience and the knowledge of life, and that it becomes wisdom. So thank you for that, because you helped me embrace my age and really rejoice in getting older and having certain things come to fruition. So Excellent. Thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.
And now the third deck.
Okay, the third deck is called Mystic Men of Magic. It wasn't until I was working on the book cover that I realized that it was actually Men of Magic is great, but Mystic Magic is even more powerful. So I've been calling it for short form Mystic Magic, and it is the masculine deck, which is why it's Men of Magic, and I use the archetypes that I felt very drawn to, such as the pirate, the gypsy, the sorcerer, the alchemist, and there's 11 categories instead of 4 categories as in the first one, or no categories, sorry, as in the first one, and 4 categories in the second. And the Mystic Men of Magic speaks about the collective consciousness, and the aspect of the action and awareness that masculine energy seems to hold on a great level. And the writing for that was interesting because when I was doing that writing, instead of looking at the series retrospectively, I was looking at the series and saying, I've come to this point, and what do I do now? What's my next step? So that went, like, I had that aha moment, and I went, action.
Yeah.
Because I've got a lot of stuff that had been building, and as one of my coaches has said a few times, is basically, you're great at content, get out there, do something about it. And I'm going, I'm still a little, little scared and a little intimidated by, what it can do for me, for others, and so I'm still holding back, which is why it was interesting to go back to this book, with this invitation, was to go, yeah, okay, I think I'm ready now. Jonathan can lead the way a little bit in that respect.
So you use these cards in your intuitive guide, you do divination with them, and you do you pull cards and do readings for people in your studio, which is at the old RVH. What do they call that?
Victoria Village.
Victoria Village, right. So you have an office there, and it's absolutely beautiful there. You've created the perfect nest for yourself.
Well, it's easy when you have all kinds of props from your costumes and shoots. It looks very eclectic.
Never pass a good thrift store.
No, never. As a matter of fact, that's where I found that cloak that I'm going to gift you with.
That's
so it's
super.
Interesting. But I love working with the cards to help people see, a little bit clearer into their now. I call them like whispers from beyond, and there's some predictive element to them, but that's more if people want to be able to project into the future. But I like to focus on the now.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule of writing and creating. And coming to see me here at Epiphanies.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's really great. And I'd like to thank the viewers for staying with us for this show. We've enjoyed talking to Colette Mesdag about Jonathan Livingston Seagull, and I truly hope that you will be inspired to pick up that book, because it really can change your life. Thank you so much for joining me here today, Rev.Jessie Brandon on Epiphanies. Have a great day.